It is another Wednesday, and we are here for the journey to more. If you are new, my name is Jamila Moore. I am the founder of I Am and More, an online leadership and business development firm where I help everyday individuals like you build out profitable businesses, monetize your skills, and then legally protect your business and your profits, as I am an attorney by trade. Today is super special. Each Wednesday, we come here and we talk about the journey to more. And it's literally like we're all chasing becoming the best version of ourselves. And so today, we really focus on some of the soft skills and things that we need to be successful. Now, today, my heart is really happy because let's just drop here with this fact. 2% of all attorneys, Black women make up 2% of all attorneys. And you have two attorneys here today. Can we just clap it up for that? Put some fire in the chat. Put something in the chat to congratulate. This ain't easy, but you have two of them here today. So our guest to talk about managing relationships as we climb the ladder to success is the Morenike Williams. She is a lawyer, a leader, a transformation and executive coach, an entrepreneur and speaker that has successfully navigated roles in the private sector as well as the entrepreneurial world. Now, Morenike is a special attorney because she has worked at two of the top 5 law firms in the US and London. You hear what I just said? We got some gems here today with this girl. And not only has she done that, she has worked with Vanguard and HP, where she has been the divisional lead and senior manager of a team, partnering with execs to help their teams adopt lean and agile ways of working as part of a broader organizational transformation effort. Now, the girl is on fire. Let me tell you what else she did. She said, you know what? I'm climbing the corporate ladder, but I'm going to go ahead and start my own business because there's something down on the inside of me that other people need. And so because of that, Morenike said, I'm going to found Revision Coaching, where she coaches people to be the best selves, their best selves. Listen. I'm going to stop talking about it and I'm going to bring her to the stream so she can tell you a little bit more about herself. Let's welcome Morenike Williams.
Hey. How are you? I'm so happy to be here.
I am well. Thank you for coming on today. I know I didn't do your bio justice, but she's on fire, y'all. That's all I got. That's all I got. The girl is on fire. And
no,
today,
you did. I was feeling myself over here listening to you. I was like, oh, yes, I did that.
It is what it is. And today we're talking about managing these relationships. Like, all right, you see how I had to take a picture already because it gets that real. So to start us off, I want to say there is no such thing, or we do not see the letter I in success. Is it there? Do you see it?
No.
So what's your take on that statement?
Oh, that's good. I think when I think about there being no I in success, there's kind of two things that come up for me. The one piece is that like none of us get here alone. Like every rung of the ladder that you get to successfully on the corporate ladder, like there is someone who helps you get there. And I think that we have this kind of idea that, oh, I did this, like I did this task. And it's very action oriented. But like when I think about closing a deal, I was only able to do that because my mom was like, well, I'm going to prep these meals for you so this baby can eat. Or, when I was trying to build something and I'm freaking out because things aren't going, it's the friend who picks up the phone and listens to me vent and cry for an hour and get myself back together. And so I think success is holistic, and it's not just about the eventual outcome or reaching that destination. It's the journey and the people who supported you along the way. And so I think of it like a race, like, when people are running like a 10K and there's those little water stations, like think about like, who are the people who are at the water stations along the route that you're on as you're journeying. And so I think like that's one piece of it. And then the other piece is just success is to me bigger than yourself. And so, like, if it's just about you and you getting the bag or you getting, accolades, then you've defined it incorrectly. And so, I think success for me is doing what I love, getting to wake up and do what I love, and knowing that I'm on purpose, I'm in purpose, and that people's lives will be better for having interacted with me doing that thing. And so, that's success to me. And it's about the people that I'm serving, it's about the impact and the transformation that I'm driving. And so, that's why I think there's no I. Like, I am involved because I am the person who is doing it, and then just from a spiritual side, I know that, like, I know from whom my help comes. And so for me, that's God. And so just even there would be a level of arrogance for me to think that anywhere I get to is just by myself.
Listen, Morenike Williams is here. She's already dropping gems. Listen, like, share, tag the broadcast, tell somebody to come here right now and listen to this subject. Two things you said: we can't go at it alone.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes we look at the person on the front thinking about success, but it really is all of the people who helped them get there. Like, you shared the story about your mom. I remember my mom picking up extra shifts at work so that she could send money to Virginia so that we could finish paying the tuition on college, And then, like, because I got that degree, then I could go ahead and get the other degree. So
Yep.
here is another saying that we have in life, right?
Okay.
Takes a village to raise a child. But I like to say it takes a village to attain and maintain healthy success. How have relationships played a pivotal role in your life?
Ooh, yeah, that's good. I mean, they're fundamental. They're crucial. I would say for me specifically, like, so I am my mother's only child, and she raised me by herself. And so while I have some half siblings, we didn't grow up together. So there was always this component of knowing that my core relationships, aside from the relationship that I have with my mother, are going to be outside of the house. And I could see that there was value in that. I was always drawn to that connection that you could have with people. I would say fundamentally part of why I think relationships are so important is it's an opportunity in healthy relationships. Let us be clear, like, that's a whole other conversation. Like, healthy relationships, but it's having someone who can hold a mirror up to you and who can see you even when you don't see yourself. And so for me, they've been pivotal because there have been people who could speak life into me, who could believe that I could do something before I even believed that I could do it, and being able to rely on them. And then I think that they're support beams. So when you think of like a house, if the support beams go, the house kind of crumbles. And that's not to say that, you're dependent on your relationships, but recognizing there are times when you're tired and that you need to be able to lean on someone. And so I think they are a source of replenishment. They're a resource. They're people who see you and who see all of you, and that they can reinforce the idea that I am enough. And for me, that is crucial, especially in this season of being an entrepreneur where you can feel like you can have doubts creep up, knowing that I have people around me who look at me and they're like, you are enough and more. And so I think that's like, they're just they're pivotal, they're crucial, they're essential when they're healthy and when they're done right.
I think the key there is health and done right. And, as we climb to success and you journey to more and you realize I am and more, you start to realize early on, you probably didn't have the healthiest relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to go through this, like, crushing in a sense.
Yep.
And it's during that crushing that you start to even define what health is. And so let's dig into that a little bit. What is a healthy relationship? How would you define a healthy relationship?
I think from my perspective, a healthy relationship has balance. When I think about, especially when you have, so first of all, there's two things. Like, one is categorizing people correctly, because I think that that's the mistake a lot of us make, is that, you giving people that all access pass who really should be maybe more in general admission, like you catch up with them occasionally, but you're not using level of discernment, and you're not setting appropriate boundaries. And so I think step one is just recognizing who fits into what bucket. And like, when I say that, it's not to being personal. It's just to be honest. It's not like I'm walking up to someone like, oh no, you ain't in that bucket, so I can't talk to you after a certain time. No, but it's for me to know like what I have to give, how much I can give. My inner circle is small because I can only pour at that level to so many people. And I think that's the truth for all of us. And when we try to pour across 20 people, we end up burnt out. And so when I think about health, it's balance because I'm looking at how many people can I pour into, but also who's pouring back into me. My goal is not to be an empty vessel. And so if I'm just surrounded by people who are looking to receive, but who aren't looking to replenish, there's an imbalance and there's a problem. And that to me doesn't speak of health.
Listen, Morenike, let's pause for the cause. We have Tasha Payne in the chat talking about I am enough and more. Love it. We got Faith to Feet TV talking about healthy relationships. Let's just go ahead and here. Let's put balance in the chat.
Yes.
Because that was one of my takeaways. We got categorize and we have balance. Because in a relationship, we're going to pour, which means we're going to invest.
Absolutely.
And if we are investing, then in a healthy relationship, we get a return on our investment.
Hey, come on, ROI.
We get a return on our investment in relationships. And so many times we don't think of it in that way. And so as we continue to climb the ladder to success, one of the things that I think about is the times where you go into an intensive moment, like someone who's crazy enough to be a charter school educator during the day and attend law school as an evening student. How do you maintain relationships as you're like stuck in the moment climbing?
So it's a good question. I mean, I think it's about prioritizing and time management. And so it for me has been like laying out like what is my schedule for the week and actually building in time to connect with people. And again, it's not about, I think that sometimes the practical things that we need to do, our tendency is to think like, oh, if I'm scheduling time, then it means that I don't care or that it has this impersonal component. When in fact, I think it's the exact opposite. I recognize I only have so many hours in a day, and I am going to be intentional about giving you some of those hours because you matter to me, and connecting and being in touch with you matters to me. So I have actual time in my calendar where I'm like, hey, this is time for me to catch up with my mom, or hey, this is just like I'm going to text and call a few people just to see how they're doing and connect because I want to make sure I do it. Because how many of us, like you get to the end of the day and you're like, oh, I meant to call that person, or oh, I meant to touch base. I'll do it tomorrow because now it's late. So it's like you put it.
No, morning. I'm never going to call probably. And then it's 3 weeks down the line and I had enough. Like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. I hear you.
Yeah. And so I think that that's the thing. And it's because we all get busy. And so I was like, I have to be intentional about actually putting time in my schedule to make sure that I'm not missing the moments and the people who matter the most. And so that is, I think, one piece of it. And then the other piece is recognizing and being good at communicating. Like you have to tell people and communicate what season you're in, and then they can decide whether or not they want to come along for the dance. But I think that we expect other people to know what's going on with us. And I speak to myself first on this because I expected people to be mind readers and to know what I needed and to know like how stressed I am. And they don't. And so I had to start saying like, hey, over the next 3 weeks, I'm going to be in a sprint trying to get this thing done. So I may fall off a little bit. I need you to proactively check on me. And so it's about communicating my needs and also listening to the needs of other people. So if my mom's like, hey, I kind of, leave you alone. So for those who don't know, like I was living in Philly, but during the pandemic, I've come down to be with my mom until we go back to work in the office. And so she's like, hey, I know I leave you alone during the weeks. I know you're busy, but it'd be great if you just, make sure that essentially protect our time on the weekends or on Sundays. So that was the thing. It's like, okay, Sunday is our day. So we watch church together and then we hang just the rest of the day. So again, she needed to communicate to me what she needed as well. And so communication is key and time management is key, I think, really, especially in a season where you are going through a lot and your time is really like, it's cliche, but of the essence where it's stretched. And like you said, it feels like you're crushing or being crushed all the time.
Yeah, it's interesting because, the chat is lighting up right now, like scheduling time Someone says, I need that because something is always missed. And then we got yes, be intentional. Right now, if we're dropping some dimes, more so Morenike than me, like, share, tag the broadcast. Make sure you're pressing subscribe to the YouTube channel and pressing like and following the I Am and More page. And then if you're like, Morenike is so amazing, then here is one of the ways, or a few of the ways, that you can connect with Morenike, because she is really invested in making sure that people like you and me can show up the way we are purposed to show up. And if that means revising our lives, she will help you do it through revision coaching.
Yes.
One of the things that you just said that really stuck out to me and resonated with me was the idea of, first, you really had to prioritize you in order to do any other relationship well. And so many times I feel like we have it backwards. We will prioritize them trying to do the relationship well at the expense of our own life.
Absolutely. 100%.
If you've ever done that, put yeah, that's me in the chat. Drop a yeah, that's me. I mean, I've been guilty of it. And on the flip side, probably because I hadn't done the communication piece, there has been some misunderstanding as it relates to what it means to take care of yourself.
Yes.
Because we as people have been conditioned that we take care of others first. So how have you managed that if you've had to in your own life?
100%. I think, like, you hit on something right there. It's the taking myself from the background to the foreground. And it's not selfish to take care of myself. It's important to be self-focused.
She's not running past that one to another gym. She is not running past that one to another gym, y'all. Say that, run that back.
Yes. It is not selfish to take care of myself. And that is something that I say to myself, and I would encourage other people to say that to themselves. It is not selfish. It is self-focused, because I need to focus on myself so I can be the best version of myself, so I can show up and actually be a benefit to you. When I am not,
No, I'm saying, so if we're talking about taking care of yourself and now learning to prioritize yourself, I feel like at least some of the people in my life, they are very opinionated. When you start to go down this path and they have advice for you and what you could do. But for many of us, if you're like the first person in your family traveling down your path, the advice may not be best. How do you handle that, Morenike?
So the way I think about it is, like, everyone has a thing that they are meant to do. And you have this dream, you have this vision. And when it is fully formed, it is like a massive tree. So that's at the end. It's a massive tree. So the vision I see for myself of where I go down my different career paths, it's massive. I stopped giving people the permission and the opportunity to judge my tree when it is still in seed form. So my dream, you don't get to judge it like it's an oak when I just put it in the dirt. So I think it's protecting that. And that's okay, because, like you said, a lot of us, unless you were born into a situation and a circumstance in a circle where everyone is entrepreneurs, everyone is used to kind of going out there and taking these risks. Being an entrepreneur is tough, and it requires you to take multiple leaps of faith. I think on Facebook, it's cute. People are like, oh, launch your business in 30 days and this and that. And you can, but they don't talk about the backside of that and all of the back office stuff and all of the things that you have to learn, even just using like streaming services to be able to go out to people. Like, there's so much that comes into the equation. And so I think that you have to be willing to protect your seed, because not everybody's going to get it. Not everyone is going to be poured out the grace to be able to see it. Like, I think about, there's this example of Walt Disney, and they talk about he was sitting on a bench and he was staring, and they asked what he was doing. And he was saying, I'm visualizing a mountain. And it was Space Mountain. And he died before it was completed. And someone said to his widow, man, I'm sad that it's too bad he didn't get to see this before he died. And she was like, he did. Like, he already saw it. We're just waiting for the rest of us to catch up to the vision. And so I'm waiting for everybody else to catch up to the vision. But in the meantime, I'm going to protect it. And like, the one other thing I would say on that is, like, just think about a seed and everything that it has to go through. Like it's under the dirt, it's packed down, but it's protected where it can get nutrients, where it can be protected from the elements until it has the strength to start to sprout up above ground. And so I think that's how you have to look at your vision. That's how you have to look at your dreams. And so, especially to your point, when you're first in family, when you're going after things that they don't seem safe, they don't seem realistic, because people who may be in your circle who've come from where you've come from, they've never seen someone from there do that. And so a lot of times it's not even hate, it's well-meaning people, just a little bit more risk averse. And so you have to be very careful who you share what with. And so that's why it's important, again, back to relationships, having a few of the right people in your circle who God has just like really positioned them to like also see that vision. Even if they don't see it, they'll believe with you. I don't need you to see it. I just need you to have faith. Be my faith friend. Okay. Like be my faith friend. So I can get off my soapbox, but
listen, believe with me. Like
yes.
I can just share from my own life. I'm always jumping off a cliff. And I know my family at this point is like, girl, but to your point, now I've turned some of them into believers. Like, well, if she gonna do this, then she probably, you know, got something going on. She gonna leave the West Coast and go to school on the East Coast. Oh, okay. She not coming home. She's living in New York. Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, so she's going to go to law school and work. Oh, okay. Oh, you're gonna quit your job. Yeah. Oh, okay. And so, like, to your point, even when sometimes people don't understand it, they have to at least be at a place where they can believe in the vision with you and learn to manage their tongue. One thing that I am setting boundaries with people in my life with is what you speak over my vision and my life. Like you do not have permission to say that that is impossible. You do not have permission to put a limit when God owns the cattle in the house. Right? So just because I believe bigger, that doesn't mean you can speak against the bigger. Look, we got what? People got to manage your tongue. You got to your tongue.
And like what you said, like I want people not to miss an important thing that you just said about that permission piece. Like don't be afraid to correct people, because we're not saying that like you can avoid people saying things, but I will proactively correct someone when they're like, well, you know, hopefully it goes well. I said, no, when it goes well. So you just, and it's even just helping with that mindset shift. Again, it's not that people are being malicious, but you have to kind of train people how to support you and how to support, or we won't have those conversations, because you can't ask me to confide in you and to bring you into the conversation, and then you're not willing to use a lingo that speaks life into what I shared.
Did y'all hear that? You're not.
I hope you did, because I was in the flow.
Lingo. I forgot the rest. Somebody should have typed.
Oh, like you're not willing to use the lingo that supports the vision of what I just shared. It's run it back on the replay.
We'll run it back on replay and make sure it's there. Make sure it's happening. And so one of the things that is inevitable as you're climbing the ladder to success and you start to become a better version of you, there will become a point where you have to evaluate all the relationships in your life.
Absolutely.
Because the reality is some of them won't serve you or have changed categories. How do you manage that, Morenike?
So it's twofold. Like one of it is active pruning of my circle, and some of it is just natural attrition. And when I say that, what I mean is to reach the goals I have set for myself, I have to become a person who reaches those goals. And so as I get very clear on my identity and who I am, and I start to walk that out, some people will just naturally fall by the wayside because they liked and fell in love with a broken version of myself. That's not the version who is going to achieve and accomplish these goals. And so when we connect, that's not who they're meeting. So they are being reintroduced to me. And that may not be their cup of tea, and that's okay. So there is some natural attrition that will just happen as long as you don't fight it. That piece, it's like, don't fight it. And I speak to myself first, because I used to do that. Like when people want to exit your life, you have to be okay letting them do that. And I'm not saying it doesn't hurt, but it's going to hurt a lot more if you keep someone in position that they don't belong or even want to be in. And so I let the natural attrition occur. And then there is some proactive pruning. And that takes multiple forms. Again, like, so when I go into a season where I'm really trying to get clear on like what's next, I will naturally start to insulate a little bit. And I'll let people like, hey, it's top of year. I'm really focused on my goals. I'm really focused on getting clear. So I'm going to go into my hobbit hole a little bit and just, get some clarity. And I start to test. I might say like, here are some things I'm thinking about, and I see the responses. And so then I just like, if there's someone who's applying fertilizer, amazing. We can continue to lean in there. If they're applying weed killer, have all the seats. I'm gonna love you from a distance. And it's not like, I think like proactive, again, this is a conversation I'm having in my head, but you can make, and even with COVID, frankly, one of the silver linings has been because we're virtual, it is easier to start to insert some of that distance into some situations that weren't as beneficial. And so I just may not reach out as much. I may not call as much. I may not text as much. And then you see if they're leaning in and there's room to grow and to evolve. But it really starts with, this is me. And this is a healed whole version of me. And if that's not your cup of tea, that's okay. But I'm not going to surround myself with anyone who thinks that this version is not enough. Not the potential version of me, the version I am right now.
Listen. I don't know if y'all are doing it already. Like, share, tag. Yes. Do you hear what she is saying? Like, you have, and I've said this before. I said relationships, the right relationships are somewhat like a marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Because you are saying, because of your heart and our shared value system, we are committing to love each other through the seasons, through the journey to more.
Yes, yes.
And so if you aren't ready to have that type of commitment to a friend, you might want to sit down and do some self-evaluation to figure out why not.
Mm-hmm.
Because the reality is, at some point, there's going to be a level of offense. And then when there's an
Say
offense,
that for the cheap seats.
when there's that offense, we got to go back to that communication. Can you communicate in a healthy way about that offense? Then you have to say, all right, stuff happens. I'm forgiving you. And we're moving on because we're still together journeying to more. And I think, when one person starts to, here I go again about my ladder, but when one person starts to climb that ladder to build their 3-story house, and then we have that person building their 1-story house, it starts to get a little disconnected.
Yes. Yes.
And then when people refuse to disconnect proactively, then we get the boom. But you talked about proactively kind of like pruning people out. But how do you manage when there is clearly a misalignment now in the values and the purpose for the relationship, and possibly just saying it's time to decommit?
It depends on the situation, because I have had a conversation where I needed to actively say that to the person, and I said it from a place of love and trusted that they would receive it. And that was part of the tee up, which is like, I'm glad you're doing well. Based on what you said, things are going well, and I continue to wish you much success. I have something to share with you, and I pray that you receive it in the spirit that is given, which is from love. I feel like we're in a season where we can no longer support each other because our paths have taken very different turns. And when I look at where you are, I don't think that I can give you the support that you are due and justified in requesting and requiring of me as a friend, and vice versa. I don't think that you have demonstrated your willingness to give me the support that I believe that I deserve and need in this season. And so I just feel like it's an opportunity for us to just go our separate ways. And if we're meant to circle back, we will. But for right now, I think that it's best that we no longer communicate proactively. I haven't heard from them since. I have zero love lost for them. I wish them well. I hope they are flourishing, but I also recognize that that is a relationship, and it was one of the few that I had from one of my most toxic seasons. So when we talk about me being healthy and whole, there was a time where I was extremely depressed and suicidal. And so really that was a friend that I had during that time. And so there are just pieces of me and behaviors that are associated with that time that come up in interacting with them. And like that doesn't have a place in my season. So I think that is a case where I had to proactively have the conversation with the person to say, like, I need to decommit from this and I need to take a step back. A second example was with my older half brother, who I proactively had to say that, I love you, I wish you well, but I feel that there is a toxicity to this relationship and the interaction. And I don't feel that I prefer for us to communicate anymore. Now, there were words said on his part that he didn't necessarily receive it as well, but it is what it is because I had peace about that. And so I think it's a long-winded way of saying that you have to choose you, and no one is entitled to your time or to you. And so be okay choosing you, and be okay that that might hurt some people's feelings and some people may take offense to that, but their offense doesn't mean that you deprioritize you. And we have to get more comfortable with saying that what I need and what I am going to demand of the people who are around me is okay. They can choose not to participate. This is not like servitude. I'm not shackling you to me saying you have to, but I'm saying this is what I need in this season, and if you don't want to be a part of that, blessings, blessings. But we need to be comfortable demanding and speaking up for ourselves, our inner child who is screaming for us to do better.
Listen, managing relationships, what is all boiling down to is really us knowing us, respecting us, and loving us. And if you're just tuning in, this is the Morenike Williams, one of America's greatest lawyers on the planet. And I am your host and the founder of I Am and More. We are discussing managing relationships while climbing the ladder to success. And if we've been dropping gems, like, share, tag the broadcast. One of the things that I want to lean into is the fact that sometimes when you're climbing the ladder to success, one of the hardest relationships to manage is the relationship with yourself, because you come to a place where you don't even recognize you anymore. Because you're no longer toxic, because you're no longer like wasteful with your time, because you're no longer doing the things that you used to do, because that was never you in the first place. I remember one time just being like, oh my gosh, I thought I was supposed to settle for that version of me. Like, I literally thought that was the best version of Jamila until like God knocked me on my head and say, hey girl, I've called you more.
Yes.
Like, this is a lower version of you, and I need you to show up as the real you. And that's hard because you can recognize that, dang, I have to shift in this relationship.
Yep.
Dang, I can't do this anymore because this doesn't serve where I'm going. Because to your point about the seed, when you're a seed, you're underground, but once you start to sprout and you break in the soil, you now have some type of sight as to what can be. And when you know what can be, you can't settle for anything less.
You won't even be comfortable trying to.
And so as much as we're talking about, talking with other people and doing things with other people, it's also about us. And managing us, being okay with us, and loving us. And here it goes, just going like the broadcast. I'm supposed to be into more Nikki. No, but I feel like the spirit moving or something.
Listen, it's like we don't quench the spirit.
One of the things that becomes extremely difficult is the season of the revision.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Where you kind of have to sit down and then figure it out on how to grow to your next. And then, to your point, communicate out about that.
Mm-hmm.
How have you, outside of your mom, once you started to become the most whole and healed version of yourself, because it's a continuous journey for the rest of our
Mm-hmm.
lives, how have you really managed that piece? Because it is really difficult sometimes for folks, me included.
You said you included. It's it's tough at times. I think that because it's being selective, like not everyone gets all of me and certainly not out the gate. And that's not about not being authentic. It's just recognizing, again, back to never, not everyone gets that all access pass. And so it was honestly me testing it, like with my mom, and then my big bro Rodney, who's like the next closest person to me, is just like, hey, this is what I'm thinking. And because I knew who God had placed in my life, like I knew that if that person says like, whoo, I might need to go and fast and be like, did I get that right? Did I? And it was, again, because I was still at baby faith and I was still growing. I think that's a piece of it, is that it's ebb and flow. Like faith is not like, ooh, I got all the faith today. Some days I'm like, ooh, I don't know. Like this is a struggle. And so I think me being very clear on who I am, what I believe I'm purposed to do in this earth, and then I had to, it wasn't a how, it was I had to make sure that that image of me was deposited in safe places, because there are those days where I forget, where the world kind of just rears up and I forget and I don't see myself, and it's like I'm looking in a funhouse mirror. You need that person who you've made that safe deposit of your self image with, who can shatter that funhouse mirror and then restore, and like, no, what are you looking at? This is who you are. And so for me, it was just, I knew, because of getting to a place where I was in such a dark place. And the reason I was there is because I didn't know who I was. And I had all these other voices telling me like, you're this, you're this. I'm like, well, if I'm not that, do I still have value? And then when I realized how it was like your nerves are exposed. So as I'm rebuilding, I'm really sensitive to who's talking to me, and I'm really plugged into what's triggering me. And so it was, okay, these are two safe places. I have to deposit my self-image with them, because I know that there are going to be moments where I forget. And so I guess that's kind of the way I would respond to that. And just thinking, as you look at your circle, do you have a safety deposit box in human form? If you don't, I mean, like that's it. Like, you don't need a lot, you need one. Do you have a safety deposit box who you can share that just self-image, the biggest, boldest, baddest version of you that's just like next level, that like my Beyonce, Oprah level status dream, and deposit that with someone? And so I think for me, it was less about having a bunch of people who saw it and more about having the right person who saw me and who would believe with me. And so again, it goes back to that, having someone who will believe with me. And then those who, again, I do the little test seeds. You throw out a little something here or there, and people who just demonstrated that they didn't have the capacity to see me that way, blessings. But what I will say is that it's a lot less people perhaps than you're expecting. Like I was anticipating, as I started, because I've been coaching people for years, but as I started to more externally refer to myself as like, hey, I'm a transformational and executive coach, I was like, they know me as a lawyer. What is the reaction going to be? And I'm like, am I going to get laughed out of the room? They're like, oh, that makes sense. You've been coaching such and such for years, like with your gems. I was like, oh, so they even saw potential in me. So again, there's aspects of that dream that I share with them. Not everyone gets the full vision. Not everyone gets the whole picture, but I do have two safety deposit boxes who have it.
Listen, that is so good and so well said. Like, we have to have safe people around us. And that goes back to healthy relationships. Are they safe? Are they balanced? Are they willing to see you? Are they willing to celebrate your success? Because that becomes a whole nother thing to manage, where people, their insecurities can't handle your level of success. So you lose people along the way that you truly do love unless they start their own journey to wholeness and being healed. And cousin Drake, I think I'm gonna call him cousin. I'm to my family. I got 10 siblings, more. I don't even know. I stopped counting on the sibling end. But cousin Drake said this one time. He said, "No new friends." And you and I are both entrepreneurs. We have attained a great level of success. And I feel like that if you're going to be successful, if you're going to grow, if you're going to be I am and more, then you have to know how to invite new members into the community and what to look for in a new community member. What are some of the things you look for because you need new friends?
You do. And I think I would reframe even when I hear that, I just look at like, what do I take from it? And I'm like, it's like, I'm open to new friends. I'm not open to frauds.
Ooh, hold on.
I said that. Come on, Jim. I said that. I was like, I had to pat myself on the back for that one. But that's the thing. And so I think it goes back to discernment. It goes back to being honest about the person who's in front of you. I want friends. I want people who genuinely care about me, to your point that you said earlier, who are going to celebrate me in my successes. I don't need people who are around me for the wrong reasons. And so I think that's more of what the song is getting to. And when you talk about like no new friends, is can I trust your intentions being a newer entrant to the circle? And so especially as you attain and reach new levels, that now the person is drawn to what you have and not so much who you are. And so I think that that's being clear. That's like really, discernment, and just looking how they move. But so that's, to me, it's less about not having new entrants, because we always talk about like what is like your network is your net worth. And if you're looking at the 5 people around you, what does that say about you? And I didn't grow up with a bunch of people who are entrepreneurs who are building 7, 8, 9-figure businesses. So I'd be the fool if I'm like, you built a 10-figure business, but I'm not going to let you in my circle. So we're all going to be over here struggling without the tools and the ability to leverage that knowledge because we're trying to lock it down here. So it's like, can you trust yourself to actually evaluate people? And I think that when you're not willing to let people into your circle, it says more sometimes about you and your ability to properly evaluate people. And I say this because I haven't got burned before. So it's not a judgment to other people, but it wasn't because I didn't know better. It was because I was avoiding the flags I saw, because I was so focused on acceptance and wanting someone to want me that I didn't think about whether or not they deserve to be in my orbit. And that's not arrogant. That's just fact. Everybody has an orbit. And you need to be very selective about who you let in it.
Listen, the gems that have been dropped, if you watch this later, tag a friend in the comments, like, share, tag the broadcast, subscribe to the YouTube channel, like the Facebook page, because the reality is, if you're going to go anywhere in life, you're going to need relationships. So figuring out how to manage them when it's time to, drop somebody off at the bus stop, keep going, and then add somebody else onto it. When it's time to stop riding the bus and get on a train, and then you go from the train and you go from the plane. I'm just thinking about my life on the East Coast at some point. Because the mega bus was something real that I refused to ride.
I know the mega bus. just no. Move on.
Basically said, you have crucified and buried unhealthy relationships and resurrected, come on, the power to walk healthy as a friend and identify those who share that same power.
Yes.
I mean,
come on.
That's it. That's it. And the thing is, we can't lose ourselves even when we show up as a new and better version of ourselves. We can't dial down our greatness because it might cause you to feel some type of way. Because if we're doing the ladder to success well, it's because there are people who are waiting on what's on the inside of us in order for them to get to their next level. Absolutely. And so we owe it to the person that needs us to get relationships right and to see ourselves properly and to have the right boundaries and things in place. Listen, these usually go about 30 minutes. I think they got so many gems. Do you have any last final thoughts about this topic?
Yeah, I think the one thing I would say to people is a lot of it is mindset. And so when you feel that tension coming up in a relationship and it's at its core, like you've grown, you've evolved, you've developed, and someone is not in the same place as you, it doesn't make them bad. It just means that they're not necessarily for that season. And it's because you have a mindset disconnect. So to the point that you were saying, if I'm now visioning my next is I'm going to be flying first class everywhere or on private jets, and someone else is like, oh, you think you're too good. It's not being too good. It's just that's what I'm visioning as a part of my next. And so if we have that mindset disconnect of how we're thinking about money, you think about personal development, you invest with people. So we're both coaches. We also have coaches because no one can see themselves. You need someone who is standing outside of you to reflect these things back to you. And so when I'm looking at making certain investments, high ticket investments, because I want to get farther faster, as PD always says, like, there are going to be people who are like, oh, you spent what on a program? You spent 5,000 on a program or this, but then they will be the same people who have a bunch of shoes and bags. And there's nothing wrong with that. But like, how is that nourishing your mind? Like, is that the fruits of the labor? And that's like the ROI? Or are you doing that instead of actually making that internal investment that would get you farther? And so I think it's a mindset shift, and it's okay to evolve and realize that you're in a different space and not everybody's going to be there with you. And because we're afraid of someone saying like, oh, you're acting brand new or this and that, we stifle our own growth. We stifle our own progression and we stop. And to your point, there are people who are waiting on us to fully unleash our greatness. And we owe it to them to do that because, again, it's not about us. And so that's my thing. I think at this point, it's like, stop apologizing for being you, stop shrinking and being small. In this season, I am determined to shine and not shrink. And I would invite you to do the same.
Did y'all get your invitation? I got my invitation. We are shining and not shrinking.
Yes.
Listen, Morenike, it has been an amazing conversation tonight about managing relationships while climbing the ladder to success. We know we got to look at us. We have to have healthy relationships. And one of the things that I want to kind of like hone in on as like the final thought that you brought out is that, we have to be willing to look at our investments. And so many times we're conditioned to just do things randomly, right? But the one investment that will yield us the greatest return will be the investment itself. And I don't know anyone except for probably some of the folks over there in Beverly Hills where what they've invested on putting on themselves got them further in life. It was what they invested in their minds, in their personal development, in being in the right rooms to get the right new relationships that allowed them to have that return on investment. And so as we sign off for another journey to more, we just want to thank you, Morenike Williams, for your time and your wisdom. And we will be back here in 2 weeks. So look out for the notifications and make sure you subscribe and like the page. With love, thank you, and see you in 2 weeks.
Thanks for having me.